So the next bucket is collaboration with trusted partners. And I have to admit, we weren't always that good at this. And we heard from our suppliers that we weren't that good at it. We were getting feedback that we needed to improve. And so we worked on this area, and one of the things that we do is an annual supplier summit, where we bring together trusted key suppliers. We expose them to all of our key needs. We give them the background that they need to understand them. We have our General Mills senior leaders there. They're all in a room, go through the needs, and then out of that, this last year's supplier summit generated 200 plus proposals, and of those 71 merited further looking at. So those are 71 projects that are in process now out of the supplier summit. And while I'm really proud of that 71 number, I think the more important thing is the long-term implications for organization. Doing something so simple that we should have been doing much longer can have a really good long-term impact on how well the organization works. And we got some great feedback from suppliers that they no longer have to read the tea leaves to figure out what we want. So it's all about communicating what you need, because if you don't communicate what you need, you won't be able to find people to help you. And just to show you that this can work, this was an idea submitted by one of our suppliers at a supplier summit event. And they had the technology, they recognized the consumer need, they brought it to us. And then with some flavor work and some brand design work, we launched this into Costco. It was our most successful Costco launch ever, and now it's in retail and it's doing very well. So this is an example of what can happen. And then there's a third bucket, collaboration with new partners. And this is, if you think it was hard for trusted suppliers to get in, it was practically impossible for anybody new to contact us. And in fact, this was a letter that went to a technology broker in April of 2005, and our corporate policy was very clear. But in June 2005 is when we created our External Innovation Central Group. And so that was one of the first things they did, is throw Corporate Policy 16 out the window. They, and the ironic thing about this example, they contacted this technology broker, and it turned out that they had a technology that we ended up licensing for a product. So it was a good thing we called them back. So we have our GWIN website. We call it, GWIN is the General Mills Worldwide Innovation Network. And this is our external face to people who may not know us. This is where people who have an idea they think might apply to General Mills can go and submit the idea. And we feel like this is a key part of continuing to lead as an innovator in the food industry. I feel like the next great innovation that's going to revolutionize the food industry has already been invented. It's exactly what people have been saying here in the panel, and it's our goal to be the first one to find it and commercialize it. And so we want to collaborate with best-in-class inventors, and this is one of the ways that we do it. We look for solutions, we don't look for ideas. And although this is a great way to, for people who are just coming with their own idea to reach us, we also have all our key needs up on the website. And so you could go there tomorrow and find, you can go there today and find all of them. I think there's about 50 up there now. And each of those is linked back to someone in the company who's shepherding that need, and it's identified as a critical business need. We also have viral campaigns, which is what I talked about a bit earlier. It's these playing cards, and these are portable campaigns. We take them to meetings and shows. We have people in the company who've become kind of evangelical about carrying them around and getting them going. And each one has one of our needs on it in a very abbreviated form, and on the back side is the web address that would take you to the brief for this problem. And they have been an interesting tool for getting to unexpected places, and it had some good success. We've had them across the ocean and then back again, and then one got passed around several times and ended up with a company that was only a few miles from our research center who had a potential solution, but we didn't know about it. So it's been an interesting way, and this was a hard culture change for people to handle, because not only you're handing your need out, but you're telling them to like pass it on and pass it on. So you have no idea where this card is going to go. You have to be totally open to it going to your competitor or whoever. The next lesson is think like a startup. And this is a little bit about how I had several people ask me questions about how did you start, how did you get this done? And so this is a little bit about that. And the lesson is think small, think evolution, not revolution. And so General Mills uses something that internally is called catalyst teams. We have several catalyst teams. And a catalyst team was created for this external innovation, and it's called the X Squad internally. And it was 5, it's small, it's only 5 people. It was started as 5 people, it's still 5 people. And it was 5 people who were chosen, who were long tenured, respected colleagues, good external and good internal networks. There are people who've been around long enough that they could get things done, that they weren't too confined with getting things done in the corporate culture. They knew the workarounds. And there were people who could make stuff happen, and there were people who had a passion for making stuff happen. The model is that this catalyst team is a group of people who are passionate about this, who try techniques and develop tools and methods and lead from behind, and that they guide, they act as guides to people in the business units who are interested in applying these techniques. And so they demonstrate successes, and they help teach people, and they lead from behind. And so this is how they started. They did a lot of benchmarking. They tried a bunch of different small-scale pilots to see what would work. They were continually refining and developing. They worked first with the people in the company who were hungry to try this, rather than trying to convince people that they had to have it. You find the people who are ready and eager to adopt it, and you work with them, and that's how you gradually build it out from the center. And just to show how this works, one of the things that they've done is this example. And this is also the lesson of demonstrating quick wins, because the company was funding 5 full-time employees, so that's not cheap. So they wanted to know that it was worth their while. And nothing convinces better than showing something, some successes. And so this is an example of the sort of thing they would do. The meals division had a need for creating premium Asian frozen meals. They didn't know how to do it. The central catalyst team recognized that Thailand was being positioned as the kitchen to the world. They went to Thailand. They looked at all sorts of companies and opportunities there. They identified CP Foods as a premier food company in Thailand, made those connections, and that enabled a launch with CP Shrimp in these Wan Chai Ferry frozen dinners. And so that's the sort of thing that they have done. So after starting small, that was in 2005, then in a sense, the company bought the startup back and expanded a couple years ago. And this was the creation of the Innovation Entrepreneurs Group, which is the group that I am in. I am the innovation entrepreneur for the Yoplait division. Each business unit has an innovation entrepreneur, or an IE as we call them. And then there are also IEs who work in the shared, I would say like the corporate research and some of the shared groups. And this is where the goal is to get the behavior, the open innovation, connected innovation behavior spreading more to the division. So it's not only that small catalyst team. Spread it out to the divisions, make it more of a normal behavior, get it more linked to the business. And so each of these people sits in the division, but with a dotted line into the central innovation group. And we help the division articulate their needs. We help people write briefs. We help them use the tools. We help them connect. We help them think about how they might be approaching their problems differently, and how to integrate opportunities into their pipelines. And then the last lesson is thinking about what's next. Because you can't stagnate, you have to always improve your program. And we like to think of, we look at best practices, but we also like to challenge ourselves to think of next practices. What's the next thing that's going, and how can we improve the program from here? And I'll just talk about a couple things that we're thinking about or trying. One is new tools for connecting. We have a vision for a virtual workbench that would allow any developer, any scientist, engineer to virtually connect with people around the world. This would be something that people could use to manage their briefs and their connections. They could use it to search for scientists and engineers around the world and make those connections. Also, we are a large food company. I said we're the 6th largest, but we're still less than half the size of Kraft and less than a fifth the size of Nestle. So one thing we want to think about is how we can play larger than we are. And one way to do this are consortia, maybe, and because all the benefits of consortia. And it's easy to do pre-competitive or non-competitive consortia, but is there a way to do consortia with competitors if you set it up and can get through the legal entanglements? Are there areas that could be ripe for that kind of work, like food safety and sustainability or nutrition or things that really go cross? And it's interesting to hear about the collabs, because I think that's this kind of where this kind of thing may happen. And then can we play larger by having a better global scouting network? Is there a way that we can cover the world more efficiently than we do today? So that's the lessons I've gone through. One is know what you want. Do you want salt replacer or do you want sodium reduction? The second one is break down those walls. Make sure people know what you need, because they can't help you if they don't. Third is build a connection mindset. Help people realize that connecting to the inventor is as important as making the invention. Start small, think evolution, not revolution. Demonstrate some quick wins that will help get buy-in in the organization for the changes that are going to have to happen. And then you continue to think about what's next. And then to wrap up, I'll just show you, these are some of the products that we've launched with a significant externally enabled component in the past few years. And one metric that we use is the % of new launches externally enabled. And I've had some conversations with people at metrics. We don't know what the right metric is, but we're happy that this is increasing, because we say that's an indicator of a behavior change. People ask, what's the right percentage? Should it be 20%, 25, 50? 75%? And the answer, I think, is there's not really a percentage that's right. The important thing, at least to us, is that we're changing the way people work and their behavior so that people can break through the clutter and make the right connections and get access to the cloud of ideas, because that's where their next big innovation is going to come from. So thank you, and I think I probably have some time for questions.
I got a question too.
We talk about working with our competitors as co-opetition. Have you yet got to that stage where you're working with the likes of Kraft or Nestle, or how's that perceived in General Mills?
Yeah, so the question is, how have we got to, I like that word, co-opetition. That's like frenemies, sort of. So no, I would say, we have partnership with Nestle in one category and they're a competitor in another, so we have those kind of things. So those are more traditional joint ventures. So I would say we haven't got to that, and if you have examples, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Simon Everts, I'm Wiley European branch and European Space Agency. Lisa, go back a few years to when you were starting this process and you were at stage 2, breaking down the walls. Was there a disparity between the resources that you had and the process that you'd embarked upon and that you were trying to pursue? If you didn't have the resources, how did you get them? Or if you did have the resources, how did you get them?
So you're asking about resources specific to breaking down the walls?
The activities that you were pursuing and the processes you had identified to do to breaking down the walls requires staff, requires time, requires resources.
Yes.
How did you get that?
So, because that was really at the beginning when there was this group of 5 people. And the head of our innovation technology, our research organization, had a vision that this is the way of the future after he had done some benchmarking with P&G mainly, I believe. And so he made sure that that group of 5 was funded. And so the resources came from a specific champion in the organization. And then it was up to the group to use those wisely and long enough to demonstrate some quick wins. Now, the breaking down the walls, that was more of a culture change, actually, than a resource change. That culture change of being willing to share information, because we were always worried about sharing too much with our suppliers, because what if it got back to our competitors, because our suppliers also work with our competitors. And we didn't think about the lost opportunity of not sharing our needs with potential solution providers. But now what took the resources were the tools for getting that information out, developing the website, figuring out how to write good briefs, and developing the playing cards. All of those things took more resources, but it did all happen with that small group of 5 for the first 4 or 5 years. Does that answer your question?